Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Okay, David Wingo, thank you for your time today. What can you say about the score for The Reports?
I came in pretty late in the game, so it was I think it was only about 7 weeks before it was mixing. But they had Scott Burns and Greg, his editor, had a very Greg Bryant's editor had a very definitive idea of what they wanted the score to accomplish, and kind of all the various themes that they had done more legwork than I've ever had anyone do before, as far as really thinking out kind of a blueprint of the score and various themes for different characters and when they would come back in and how it would develop through the movie. So it was really, really great to have that. They were kind of like being halfway apologetic when we first met. Like, hopefully this isn't too much. You want to give you your freedom to. I was like, no, this is perfect. Like, it was really helpful to have. And so it really set up that what the main purpose of the score was, which was to reflect the anxiety and horror of the situation, torture program, but since it is a movie of mostly just almost entirely people in rooms talking, that's kind of the tricky part about these kinds of movies, is how to make it not realize like you're just watching a movie of people in rooms talking. It doesn't really occur to you that that's all you're watching. That's pretty much mostly. So a lot of it was just giving it a sense of propulsion and a pulse and a rhythm, shepherd you through the movie in a way feels more thrillery. It was basically kind of a thriller score, even though, like I said, the movie is, and I think it was kind of the way it's edited is kind of like a thriller. I think everything about it is there to kind of try and get your pulse racing a little bit, even though, like we're saying, it's just people talking in rooms.
Movie magic. The music in the trailer builds a lot of tension, and I felt that it was kind of like I got this life on edge kind of feeling. Is that kind of the emotional side you were trying to go for?
That's not my music. Usually in trailers, they use trailer music.
Oops.
So that, yeah,
it's good music though.
That was I'm not sure what they music, but I love that trailer. I think they did a great job, and they certainly approached the trailer thriller. So I was happy to see that.
Okay, we'll have to wait to see the movie to get the score, your score. So, what is your approach to a good score, and what do you think are some golden rules to composing to the moving image?
I mean, my approach really does. It sounds cliche, but it really completely starts over with every movie. I mean, I try not to have a tried and true way of seeing each score. It's going to always, even the approach can be I can be a little more, like this one was a very, like I was just kind of describing, I guess, like pretty tight, like really thought out, thinking every scene in a very particular way as I was scoring it. Not, and sometimes it's a little bit looser than that, just kind of coming up with some melodies and playing, I didn't touch the piano once for the report score. I was just like, this is going to be a synthesizer-based score, and I have my analog synths, and I have my couple of software synths, and so it became, the score would generally start with like finding a good patch, like a good sound that felt like it was going to be a good sound to base a particular cue off of. Whereas I'm working on that show Kidding, and a much more melodic score than I usually get to do, and so instrumentation always comes second. It's more about like finding the heart of these characters, and it's kind of whimsical at times, but also melancholy. And it's like, well, that it depends much more on, for me, like finding the right progressions and melodies. And I start on the piano, kind of a classic traditional composer way, and come up with the melodies on the piano, and then move to my computer and figure out the instrumentation from there. So it really is just, as far as a golden rule, I mean, always that and this is something I think I learned through the years. It's taken a while, but the music is, it sounds obvious, but I don't think it is obvious to everyone especially when they're first starting. Like, music is 100% in service to the story, and that's the only way to think about it. I'm not, all a scene needs is one instrument playing like 3 notes, then that's the way it is. And you just learn, like, this works. I'll give other option directors so they'll have more, but let them know, like, I kind of like you should play just this horn part, because I think that's doing the job without everything else around it. And I kind of learned that this was a big learning experience when I worked with Jeff Nichols on the movie Mud, and he kept wanting me to simplify this opening cue, and I couldn't understand. There's like one part where he's like, I just want to hear like the beautiful horn there. And so I kept coming up with these horn lines, and he's like, no, I don't think that's it. He didn't really quite know how minimal he wanted it. We got together with his brother's band to do some stuff, Lucero, and their horn player, Jeff, was like, oh, let's try him on this scene. And he just played one note on the French horn, and Jeff was like, that's it. Wanted this one scene to just literally be the sound of a French horn. That was it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so kind of just a recognition, like, wow, minimal can always be more minimal. I don't ever think in terms, like, he just wanted that. And it wasn't like that was the whole cue, but there was just a section in it where he just wanted that. He just wanted the sound of this horn. So it was kind of a good learning. These are not. We're making these scores not to be analyzed musically. It's I'm just answering to the director generally, and so it's just about whatever is giving him or her the right feeling for the particular scene, and that's it. It's the only real thing it needs to. That's where it lives or dies. Not about how musically sophisticated you're being.
So, who are some of your favorite film composers, both alive and dead?
Live, I would say Cliff Martinez.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, he's great. I like Clint Mansell a lot. I think Trent Reznor's been doing great stuff. John Bryan is always doing great. Carter Burwell. I love all the Coen Brothers scores so much. I haven't heard anything from Michael Winterbottom, Michael Nyman. I don't know how much maybe he's doing English movies aren't making their way over here, but all the Michael Nyman scores for Michael Winterbottom's and Peter Greenaway films really were like a big influence on me early on when I first started really discovering film music. David Shire, incredible, still doing it. Zodiac was the last one that I really feel like I took real recognition of. But all his 70s, we talked about David Shire a lot on the report.
Oh, really?
Because that was, even though it was what I did sounded nothing like David Shire scores, I do think we were talking about the movie in terms of 70s kind of paranoia, political thrillers like 3 Days of the Condor, specifically All the President's Men, for obvious reasons. And that's one of my favorite scores ever. So I watched that movie again just looking at how the score operated, because that's another, just like this one, that's a movie that I don't think about. I love that movie. Watched it several times. When I think about that movie, I'm not like, that movie is just a lot of people talking. That is mostly what it is. So that was already one of my favorite scores. So it was fun to kind of see how it operates. A lot of dissonance that gives you a real. It's like a lot of horns with dissonance. So I did employ a little bit of that within my mostly synth score. I thought that really worked really nicely with what the score was doing. Morricone, of course.
Oof, that's my guy.
Yeah. That Hateful Eight score was insane.
Yeah, so good.
Like, he's still, like, came up with the best score of the year, and he's about 90 years old. His Battle of Algiers score is one of my favorites. I don't know if that one's talked about as much.
Yeah, I actually spun that. I have the record, and I spun that back in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because the show used to be very soundtrack focused. Cool. I still play music, but like it used to be just soundtracks, and now I do interviews on it too.
You have that record? That's amazing.
I got it at Amoeba.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. That's one of my favorite scores of all time. Easy.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. So, what are some of your scores that you are the happiest with?
Oh, I think Take Shelter is the one that I feel like means the most to me, because it was the first time I did anything orchestral at all, and we had a $15,000 music budget, and Jeff was temping in like huge, big orchestral pieces, and I loved the script so much. It was my favorite script I'd ever read, probably still is. Like, it was the only time I've just sat. It was like I was reading like a page turner, like thriller, like just reading a script about a guy kind of slowly losing his marbles. And I just loved the movie so much. It was my first time working with Jeff, and I just felt like I kind of feel like this movie can be something pretty special, and that will feel like a lot bigger than the small budget that we're operating with. And so, even though I'd never done it, it was time to move into going orchestral. And so, with that very meager budget, just figured out how to do it without using samples. Just being able to pull it off, because I was just recording a single player at a time, just faking an orchestra, basically, just having them play their parts over and over. I didn't know if that would work. I never talked. As it turns out later, I talked to other people. That's somewhat common. People do that on these low budget. I'm certainly not the first to do that. Mm-hmm. I had not talked to anyone who did that. I was just in Austin, and I didn't even know that many film composers at the time. So we gave it a shot. I hoped it would work out. I'd never written for strings before. And it just turned out really, I was like, oh, I can actually do this, okay? Like, it was a big moment for me to feel, I think I felt a little bit limited previously in terms of my career was certainly limited. I was barely making a living at that point. So I just think that movie was very special, and it did open up things a lot more for all of us, and we got Mud made from it. And so just in a lot of ways, I feel like that was a turning point in kind of every possible way. That score was a turning point for me. And I still really listen to it, and I'm still very proud of it. I think it was pretty good.
Nice. So, when I was in Los Angeles, my host, Christopher Yun, was composing Pet Sematary at the time. And he just, dude did not sleep. So I'm wondering, when you are on assignment, what are your sleep patterns like?
Yeah, I can't do that. I have friends who do that. I have other composer friends who. I just don't take on a lot of work at once. I generally try to keep it. Like everyone has their different philosophies of it. I'm not so good at multitasking. If there are two jobs I really want to do, like projects that I'm not going to turn something down if I really believe in the project, because it will make me too busy. I'm not doing that. But I'm also fairly selective and picky, and so it's not hard for me to turn something down if I feel like it's going to sacrifice the quality of something I'm working on. So, and if then the few times that I do kind of double up, I'll get help and make it so that no one is that I'm not suffering, and that I'm still getting some sleep, and that the quality is still staying at the level that I need it to be. So I just don't. Some people can operate with that lack of sleep. I cannot. I gotta also have everyone's creative process is so different. Obviously, mine really does involve, like, I used to think I was being lazy, but when I'm working, I kind of need a lot of time of letting my brain reset and go back and listen to something. So I walk the dog a lot, take a break and read for 20 minutes. Like, this is a big thing. Like, I feel like I go down the rabbit hole and I can't. I lose an oral perspective. Like, I stop hearing things as they are, almost like I'm hearing them as I'm starting to imagine them, if that makes any sense. And so if I hit reset on the ears, I come back and I was like, oh, that sounds terrible. Like, why would I possibly,
Right.
Or I'll immediately get an idea for another line. So I can't just be like working one thing to the next. I don't know. Everyone's process is different. So I try to keep things going in an orderly manner up there.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your process, and yeah, it's good. It's cool stuff. So there's a lot of great actors in the report. Did you enjoy a particular performance the most?
I mean, I'm always a sucker for Ted Levine. And I don't know if I've seen Corey Stoll act before. I don't think I'm forgetting the show that he's in.
House of Cards?
Oh, is that what he's in? Okay.
Is that the bald guy?
Right.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's where I know him from. He was in the first season or two. Yeah,
I think that's my favorite performance. He blows my mind in it.
Okay.
He's so good.
So that's something to look forward to. Do you watch the movie a few times before starting to write music, or do you just dive in?
Nah. Usually it's only like a one-time watch, and then just pick a pick a scene or a character or a theme to start with, or just like I was saying with Kidding, like that was more just like start coming up with melodies and seeing what feels like the show, and then start placing them around and getting my ideas that way. But it's usually just one time, getting the vibe, and then watching it. I'll watch it one time on its own, like watching it like a movie. I mean, also often I'm starting on. This is when I'm working on something that has an actual cut that's done. When I work with Jeff Nichols and David Green, I'm such a part of the process from the beginning that I'm starting to come up with stuff just
You're like
early
part of the
on.
writing process, I guess?
Yeah, just for Midnight Special, Midnight Special, I was visiting set, and they showed me a couple of dailies, and I went home and started just coming up with some progressions and themes, and I sent one of them, and that's the main Midnight Special theme, and sent it back, and they were like, Jeff was like, this rules, and played it for everybody, and they were like, yeah, this feels like the movie, and then sent it to Julie, the editor, and then she edited that opening scene of Midnight Special like to the music as it was, and so like things like that are like, so that's the valuable. I mean, there's many valuable things about having a long working relationship with the director, obviously, but that's like exhibit A of just like, wow, because that scene I feel like is so tight and like well edited, and just gives a vibe of what this movie's going to be, and that we were able to just from the beginning, like Julie, to have that track to be like, all right, here we go, like let's start going, editing the opening scene with knowing exactly what it would be, like the music there. So that's pretty cool. So for that, didn't see a cut of the movie till I'd already been working on it for a little bit. But then something like The Report was, I watched it at home just to watch it, and watching it like a movie. I try to do that more than without even thinking too much about the music, just to kind of, I don't know, I think to really just watch it and get into the movie is part of the thing that can inform, I don't know, trying to react from a more like instinctual place rather than like writing down like every scene when I'm watching it for the first time and already like intellectualizing it. So just trying to really watch it and capture the feeling of what it is that this movie is. And then I go and watch it with Scott and the producers and editors, and that spotting session I talked about where kind of drew out that great blueprint of exactly what it was.
Okay, so how many times do you think you've seen The Report?
That's a good question. Because then when I'm watching it, I mean, that is like the tricky part with The Report, usually, like with, because they were already done, it was a picture lock. So there was a certain point where I was working for like 3 weeks, and I was like, wait, like I haven't watched, like usually with like Jeff, I'm going in and we're watching either a reel or the whole thing, like pretty often, and seeing how the score is working on a whole. And I realized like about 3 weeks into The Report, I was like, oh crap, I hope this is all working together. Like this isn't feeling somehow bumping up like one of the, just like anything in a film, like it can all seem good in an episodic way, like in a vacuum, but all put together, sometimes there's just a strange rhythm to things. So I did stop in the middle and kind of watch it all together and made a couple of changes through that, being like, oh, this is building up too much already here, like that kind of thing. But for the most part, that was such a quick process that don't think I watched the full deal, the full cut with the score until we were done. So how many times did I see it? Well, there's a screening here in L.A., and I saw it at Sundance, and saw another, and then we watched like probably 5 times.
Wow. Jeez, that doesn't seem like too many times.
No. No, not as much as most, because it would have been different if they were still editing.
Got it.
There was no edit room for me to go to. So usually I'm going to the editing room when we're watching the movie. So, yeah.
Well, this has been a great interview, David. I appreciate the insider scoop. May you please tell me what's coming up next for you before I let you go?
Season 2 of Kidding that I'm on right now. And then some other documentary that is is under wraps to a degree, but that might not be coming for a bit. So I don't know.
All right.
But
In the meantime, we got the report. Adam Driver, Annette Bening. Holy God, good for you.
Oh, it's very good. I'm excited. They just played at Telluride last night. My friend, a good friend of mine, saw it there, and she was really praising it. It's really good. I'm very excited for everyone to see it. I feel very, very fortunate that I got to work on it.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.